Now, so in retrospect and reflection on my time as an employee for pharmacy services, I there was like I certainly noticed as if years of animosity and resent and attrition had to some extent I'd been freed from it when I began to work as a tech for the Canberra Hospital's pharmacy department. It wasn't a very long contract in terms of the duration for which I worked for them, but when I left there, I did leave thinking, gosh, I've really got to sort out, focus on each and every individual point of contention that obviously facilitated the being that jarred for that amount of time. And I think looking back, I can recall I won't go as strong as to use words like promises, but things that you're told by your employer about what good things are in store for you and your prospects in the future if you and I'm not going to bring drugs into the debate at this point, because this is like a monologue. I'm not having a debate. So, and it's a kindness on my behalf at this point not to be naming the names of just who it was that told me, this, that, and the other drugs. Everyone uses them and blah, 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 blah. I'm only just thinking about what constituted all the negativity that I was subjected to. And I think if you're put in a bind of sorts by things that are they things that have been said to you as part of your education for the business? Is it the boss telling you how he personally thinks things work? But obviously what's been said to you puts you in a definite bind. Like there's only one. I should say binds. So yeah, certainly after leaving, I get to this hospital pharmacy department, and I still had a colleague, a pharmacist who was, I would have been more inclined to have wished that he was a boss on a more regular basis in the stores in the Capital Group, but he also would work for the hospital pharmacy department too. So working for him in both environments, it was nice to have familiar face in both places. But I've categorized the nature of most of the issues. And in addition to that, are the direct statements that would be directed at me, and then the statements that you get later from pharmacists who are subordinate to this pharmacist, who's he's got the whole emperor type you don't want to get on his wrong side, and he built the business out of nothing with his bare hands, and he's ruthless, and he knows it's survival of the fittest out there, and that's just the way the world works. And he had to clonk his wife to the back of the cerebrum with a club and drag her by her hair into his cave, um, to prove what a man he is. So you don't want to mess with this guy, and it's that sort of type of talk that you go, well, if the things he is saying to me on numerous occasions are absolutely, I mean, either you change certain acts at federal level, or you start to explain what powers of mind this owner of this franchise has, that sufficient that he is of superior intellect on his own, because he built Capital Chemist. He therefore knows more than building the federal government would have been a waste of his time, because yeah, that because his mind is just that brilliant. You know, that sort of thing. So therefore, what he says to you is inerrant and not to be questioned. And if it's illegal, and it's funny because yeah, I know, like, I definitely was able to predict certain things about what he would try and do and say, because it's very much, and if you have an issue with the company, then they would prefer to represent that, in fact, instead of there being issues that you have with the franchise and the company, the way you've been treated, that are to be comprehended, although I'm sure that they're it's easier for them to comprehend the things they've said to me than it is for me to comprehend the rightness in it. So yeah, so then they'll move to say, well, his childhood must have been all sorts of fucked up, and essentially that just comes back to a moment where there was you were given an ultimatum um, to really debase yourself as a gesture of showing your level of dedication to this retail award wage chain of, we're holding people's lives and death that's in our hands. So, counseling is so much more vital. This is not stupid fucking Coles or Woolworths. It's just the retail award wage that's equivalent to Coles and Woolworths. But as moral agents, we're that much more superior to those other retail types. Of course, we have to be. This is the sort of bogus pep talks that you will get at staff conferences, where they talk about salary sacrifice. And I tuned out of half of that speech because it's like, is that about how you've already sacrificed half of what we probably deserve to be paid for the amount of ethical pressure you will arguably try to foist on any one of us award wages? Are you trying to come forward and say that the company's been sacrificing our wages anyway? Oh no, it's some scheme where we some scheme about how we spend the money that we've earned. Well, okay, yeah, very clever too. Freemasons probably love to use the word sacrifice in as many short paragraphs as possible. So I'll be back. Yeah, so Um, to try and take my mind off some of the technical difficulties I've been having getting my humble little webisode and channel out in all its fullness as I see it to all of you. Um, I think of Angelina Jolie's tattoo and Rage Against the Machine songs about enemies and the nature of the enemy, and Sun Tzu. I don't have to go as far as to say stupid things like, do I think everyone is against me, or that I'm against everyone, or that I have a special place in the universe? That was one question from uh, a purported psychologist. Uh, well, yeah, I think that was the most intelligent thing that she had said out of everything she'd said to me. Yeah, it was some years ago now, a while ago now, and I was like, no, I don't think I have any sort of special place in the universe. I don't really think this building is a special place. I couldn't say much before the psychiatrist started going about her religious intuitions. It seems to be that they have this culture where they I don't know if it's supposed to make them feel more dignified in their professional lives, but instead of dwarfing it all together, they keep hold of religion in some way, and they try to sex it up and make it fashionable for the metro professional of today, um, which isn't hard to do. You know, you can see them going, well, look, if I was going to start a church based on my spiritual supernatural beliefs, no one would touch kids. That's all they have to say to elevate their religion. The thing is, it's still a theistic religion. It's still fucking stupid. It's still distracting their attention from the ramifications of the rights charter, the ramifications of um, basic frameworks of systems of logic and logical thought that were spelt out by Greeks 2 millennia ago. Um, yeah, I've had a few dreams where I've wondered what Epicurus and Epictetus would have thought about right-wing psychiatric conversations in the modern day. Um, you'll stay at facilities where the fire alarms are embossed with the logo of uh, pharmaceutical company brands of antipsychotic drugs. Surely there's no handshake or scratch my back, I'll scratch yours type of sensibility between whoever built the facility and couldn't they at least try and save face and make smoke detectors that said counseling matters something like that. um, yeah, bit of a giveaway. Yeah, direct pharmaceutical drug names carved into the psych ward smoke detectors. It reminds me of when I was working in pharmacy and certain prescription generic drug brand companies were offering new computers to general practitioners because on those new green prescription pads, not pads, prescription forms. This is after they were those tear-off pads with the carbon copy. There's a box to be ticked that says brand substitution not permitted. And that would mean in situations where like a GP might be speaking to a foreign or an ethnic customer who is confused by the English language but has an intense medicine regime, then they might find it confusing to constantly go to every chemist they go to. They're being asked if they want to try a different brand of their medicines, and since they don't know English very well, they have a hard enough time remembering what each of their medicines are even for, because um, just the English brand names are enough of a burden for them to bear in that regard. So it only gets worse when, every single pharmacy they go to has a different brand and a different generic brand of the same medication. And that's one situation where a GP might mark or tick a box that says no, the brand substitution is just not allowed. So that's to tell the pharmacy that no, you can't give them a cheaper brand. But then there was an issue some years ago when I was working in pharmacy where these companies making cheaper generic brands were going to GPs saying, "Would you like a new computer from us, from our company, and we'll put all the software on it for you, and we'll configure it for you." And so all these GPs were going, "Oh wow, great, thanks," and we'll give you we'll pay for your trip to wherever. And so the GPs were going, "Great, thank you," and they'd get their new computers set up in their offices. But they'd rigged the drug selection software so that the software would default to the generic brand of that drug provided by the company who had provided the computer and was also distributing the generic brands of certain drugs. So this is where they became more daring than giving you free pens and sticky notepads. But then, yeah, so what was happening was a whole lot of doctors were trying to give their patients their scripts, and they were printing scripts that were just the doctors weren't knowing how to make sure that, the lady from India always got the same brand of her heart medication. Because the new computer and the new software was giving them the generic brand of that heart medication. And yeah, so it was automatically printing the scripts, making sure that the pharmacy would only know to provide the generic from that company to that patient, and the doctors weren't able to. Many of them weren't knowing how to change the script to say, or to have the same customizational control on how their scripts were being printed. And I think it led to a legal dispute, and that many of the computers were taken back even by some of these drug companies.